You meet them and feel an immediate relief. They talk about peace, energy, vibration, and purpose. They seem calm. They seem to have all the answers you were looking for. Next to them, the chaos of the world seems to fade. They look at you with a serenity that you mistake for acceptance. They tell you that you have incredible potential, but that you are blocked. And they, of course, hold the key. In the first few weeks, you feel like you are floating. You are learning, evolving. You start using their vocabulary. You meditate more, judge less, try to raise your vibration. But then, something strange starts to happen. When you have a bad day, when you express anger or frustration, their serenity disappears. It is replaced by a subtle disappointment, a look of pity. They don't say you are wrong. They say something much worse. They say your energy is dense. They say you are stuck in your ego. You cry after an argument they provoked, and they sigh, saying, I can't connect with you when you're at that vibration. And that is where the dissonance sets in. How can someone who talks so much about unconditional love be so cold? How can someone who preaches peace cause you so much anxiety? You start policing yourself. You swallow your pain because your pain has become proof of your spiritual failure. You feel constantly judged, not for your actions, but for your vibration. And the person who presented themselves as your guide to the light has become the judge who keeps you in the dark. If this feeling is familiar, you are not confused. You are not unevolved. You have just encountered the most insidious and dangerous form of narcissism that exists, the spiritual narcissist. And what you are feeling is not a failure. It is your intuition's alarm screaming that your supposed spiritual guide is, in fact, a predator in disguise. My name is Lauren Mitchell. My purpose with this channel is to show that the problem was never you, and more importantly, that you are not alone. If this video resonates with you, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and like the video. I count on your support. The spiritual narcissist's trap is the most seductive of all, because it doesn't begin with promises of worldly love, but with promises of transcendence. You were not attracted by a fancy car or social status. You were attracted by the promise of healing, meaning, and evolution. This person enters your life at a vulnerable moment. Perhaps you were leaving a difficult relationship, questioning your career, or feeling an existential void. You were looking for answers, and the spiritual narcissist doesn't show up as a potential partner. They show up as the answer itself. They have a presence. They speak slowly. They use phrases that seem profound, quoting mystics, sacred books, or New Age concepts. They read you instantly. They say they see your wounded soul or your inner light. This is love bombing in its highest form. They are not complimenting you for your beauty or intelligence. They are complimenting your soul. How can you resist that? You feel special. You feel that you have been chosen by someone of a higher caliber. They immediately position themselves as the master, the mentor, the guide, and you, naturally, assume the role of the student, the disciple, the soul that needs to be refined. In the beginning, this is comforting. They give you tools. They teach you to meditate, to see the world in a different way. But the focus is never really on you. The focus is always their interpretation of you. The problem starts when your humanity appears. One day you express a normal insecurity. You say, I'm scared I won't get that job. In a healthy relationship, you would receive support. You can do it. Everything will be fine. From the spiritual narcissist, you get a sermon. Fear is an illusion of the ego. You are manifesting scarcity. You need to clear that limiting belief. Suddenly, your valid emotion has been repackaged as a spiritual failure. You try to discuss a problem in the relationship. You say, I was hurt when you didn't include me in that decision. Their response is not about the action. Their response is about your reaction. Your hurt is an attachment. True love is free of expectation. You are trying to control me with your feelings. This is where the ground disappears. You have been led to believe that normal human emotions, fear, sadness, anger, disappointment, are signs that you are not evolved. And who defines what is evolved? Them. The spiritual narcissist creates a divine hierarchy where they are at the top, closer to God, the universe, or the source, and you are on the lower steps, struggling to climb. And to climb, you need their validation. You begin to live in a state of constant anxiety, trying to perform your spirituality. You hide your bad days. You pretend to be at peace when you are a wreck. You feel guilty not for what you did, but for what you felt. You feel dirty for being envious, dirty for being angry. And them, they float above it all. They are immune. They are on another level. They use their own calm as a weapon to highlight your imbalance. You become the crazy one, the uncontrolled one, the negative one, while they maintain the serene posture of someone patiently dealing with your inferiority. That is why you feel so confused. Your logical mind says that someone who preaches love should not make you feel so bad, but your mind conditioned by them says that if you feel bad, it's because you are failing spiritually. This is the perfect prison. They don't need to lock you up. They convince you to lock yourself up, in the name of your own evolution. To understand how the spiritual narcissist acts, we first need to decode what they are. And the first thing to understand is that their spirituality is not a practice. It is an identity. It is a carefully selected outfit, an impeccable performance. The ordinary narcissist seeks validation through wealth, power, or achievement. The spiritual narcissist has realized that there is an even more absolute form of power, moral and spiritual superiority. By positioning themselves as enlightened, they place themselves above human judgment. This facade is built on 3 pillars. The first is co-opted jargon. The spiritual narcissist is a master at using the language of healing without internalizing a single concept. They talk about karma, flow of the universe, energy, vibration, awakening, and Christ consciousness. But these words are not used to connect or heal. They are used to impress, confuse, and establish authority. They use complex terms so that you feel ignorant. They use the language of non-duality to justify apathy. They use acceptance to demand that you accept the unacceptable. The second pillar is the aesthetics of purity. They understand the power of symbolism. They might dress in white. They might have a perfectly minimalist home, full of crystals and incense. They might adopt a restrictive, pure diet. This is not about well-being. It's about demonstration. It's a performance. They are signaling to the world, and to you, that they are different, that they are clean, that they have transcended the dirty material world. This aesthetic serves as a constant visual reminder of your supposed inferiority. You, with your chaotic life and worldly desires, are presented as less pure. The third and most important pillar is the performance of serenity. The spiritual narcissist cultivates an artificial calm. They speak quietly, slowly. They react to conflict with a condescending sigh. They don't yell. On the contrary, they use silence and withdrawal as punishment. But understand, this is not peace. It is control. It is a demonstration that they are above normal human emotions. And why do they do this? Because if they are above emotions, they are above responsibility. When you confront them about a lie, they don't get angry. They say, "I just operate in my truth. I'm sorry your perception is different." They don't apologize. They honor your journey. This manufactured serenity is the cruelest weapon because it provokes you. It is designed to push you to the limit so that you look like the out-of-control one. When you finally explode with frustration from not being heard, they look at you with that phony calm and say, "See, you need so much healing. You're still trapped in anger." They drive you crazy and then blame you for your lack of peace. This facade of enlightenment has a central purpose: to create an unquestionable hierarchy. They are not just your partner, they are your spiritual superior. They are not just wrong, they are at a different stage of the journey. They are not a flawed human being having a relationship with another flawed human being. They are an enlightened master, having the patience to deal with a problematic disciple. This dynamic exempts them from all responsibility. The blame is always, invariably, on your lack of evolution. Once the facade of superiority is mounted, the spiritual narcissist starts to actively use it. They transform the language of healing into the sharpest weapon of abuse. Here, we decode how they act. They do this through 3 main tactics. The first, and most common, is spiritual gaslighting. Ordinary gaslighting makes you doubt your reality. Spiritual gaslighting makes you doubt your intuition, your emotional sanity, and your spiritual worth. When you say, "You hurt me," they respond, "No one can hurt you." Hurt is your choice. It's your ego reacting because reality didn't meet your expectations. Do you see the cruelty? They wound you and then use a distorted spiritual concept about the ego to blame you for feeling hurt. They deny your pain and at the same time give you a moral lecture for feeling it. If you get angry about their infidelity, they say, "Anger is a low vibration energy. You're attracting more of that into your life." They blame you for your reaction to their abuse. If you cry because they ignore you, they say, "You need to learn to find happiness within yourself instead of depending on me." They use spirituality to pathologize your emotions. Your pain is not a valid response to abuse. It is proof of your lack of light. Your fear is not intuition. It is ego resistance. Your sadness is not grief. It is attachment. They completely disarm you, stripping you of the legitimacy of your own feelings. The second tactic is spiritual bypassing as a weapon. Spiritual bypassing is a real concept, which means using spirituality to avoid dealing with painful human issues. The narcissist turns this into a tool for abuse. The most classic form is the distorted use of forgiveness. When they betray you, lie, or abuse you, and you try to hold them accountable, they immediately play the forgiveness card. You need to forgive to be free. Holding a grudge only hurts you. They are not asking for forgiveness. They are not showing remorse. They are demanding that you skip the process of anger and accountability and go straight to absolution. Why? Because your quick forgiveness is the supply they need to feel absolved without having to change. If you don't forgive them immediately, you are the unspiritual person who is stuck in the past. The third tactic is the distortion of karma and manifestation. This is perhaps the cruelest. The spiritual narcissist will use the concept of karma, or the law of attraction, to justify their own cruelty. If they coldly discard you, they will say that your karmic cycle has ended. It's not them being cruel. It's the universe deciding. They absolve themselves of all responsibility for the pain they cause, treating themselves as a mere agent of destiny. Worse still, they use it to blame you for the abuses they commit. If I treat you this way, it's because you attracted it. You need to look within and see what in you vibrated for this situation to happen. It is the height of blame shifting. They not only admit the abuse, but they say it's your fault for having manifested it. They convince you that the abuse they inflict is, in fact, a lesson that the universe is giving you through them. They are not an abuser. They are a reluctant teacher, a divine instrument forced to hurt you for your own good. They make you believe that your healing depends on learning to accept their abuse with gratitude. And this is the tactic that breaks the victim's psyche, making them complicit in their own destruction. We have reached the core of the issue. Why does the narcissist choose the mask of spirituality? Why all this show? The answer is simple and deeply disturbing: the supply. Every narcissist needs supply: admiration, attention, power. But the spiritual narcissist is not content with common supply. They don't just want you to admire them, they want you to worship them. Spirituality offers them the purest and highest form of supply that exists: devotion. By positioning themselves as a guide, master, or guru, they are not seeking an equal partner. They are seeking a disciple. They don't want a family. They want a flock. Think about it. The supply a guru receives is absolute. Their followers don't just admire them. They hand over their autonomy, their finances, their decisions, and most importantly, their moral compass. They believe the guru has a direct connection to the divine. This makes the narcissist feel omnipotent. They become the intermediary between you and God. In a normal relationship, the narcissist needs lies and manipulation to maintain control. In the spiritual relationship, they don't. They just need to say, "The universe told me that," or "My intuition is showing me that you are wrong." How can you argue against the universe? How can you compete with their intuition? They become your only source of spiritual validation. They isolate you from your friends and family, not by saying they are bad, but by saying they are not on the same journey, or that their energy pulls you down. They isolate you from your own intuition, labeling it fear or ego. In the end, you are left alone, with only them as your connection to the light. and this gives them total control. The spiritual narcissist's secret goal is to create a soul-level dependence. They want you to believe that without them, you are spiritually lost, that without their guidance, you will return to the darkness. They need you to see them as your salvation. That is why the spiritual narcissist's discard is so devastating. They don't just end a relationship. They perform a spiritual expulsion. They don't say, "I don't love you anymore." They say, "Our frequency is no longer compatible," or "I have evolved beyond what this relationship can offer." The hidden message is, "You failed. You are not spiritually good enough for me. I am ascending, and you are being left behind." This doesn't just attack your heart. It attacks your soul. They make you feel as if you have been rejected by the light itself, when in fact, you were merely discarded by a predator who found a newer or more devoted source of supply. They are a false god, and what they seek is not enlightenment, it is worship. And they don't care how many souls they have to break in the process of getting it. Let's connect the dots. The enlightened facade of moral superiority is the costume, the performance, the tools of control, such as spiritual gaslighting and the distortion of karma, are the weapons they use. And the ultimate goal, the engine of it all, is the insatiable need for devotion, for a supply that makes them feel divine. For years, you believed the problem was your low vibration. You believed your pain was your ego. You believed your confusion was your lack of evolution. The big turning point is this. Your confusion was not a sign of spiritual failure. It was the clearest sign of your mental health. It was your intuition, your true internal compass, screaming that something was profoundly wrong. The spiritual narcissist needed to convince you that your intuition was the enemy, because your intuition was the only thing that always knew the truth about them. True spirituality does not create hierarchies. It does not judge. It does not use peace as a weapon, nor forgiveness as a shortcut to impunity. True spirituality is inclusive. It is compassionate towards human pain, and above all, it gives you back your power. It tells you, you already have the light inside. The spiritual narcissist tells you, "I am the light, and you can only access it through me." Your healing will not come from trying to evolve to their standards. Your healing begins the moment you look at the pain, anger, and frustration that they called negative and validate them. You feel this way because you were abused. Your pain is legitimate. Your anger is justified. Recovering from a spiritual narcissist is an act of reclaiming your own spiritual sovereignty. It is taking the power of God out of their hands and returning it to yourself, to your heart, to your intuition. They were never a master. They were just a very small man, hiding behind a very large mask, terrified of the light they saw in you, and which they knew they could never possess. The true enlightenment was not them. The true enlightenment is you, seeing the fraud and finally choosing your own truth. In the description of this video, you will find a link to support materials lovingly created to help you understand and reframe what you have lived through or are living through. Feel free to use the comments below to share your story, your vent, or even a suggestion for the next video topic. Click on the suggested video on the screen and stay with me. Remember, you are light. Never forget to shine.